I mean, sometimes, but not usually so fucked up that it just comes out that blatant. I should say.
Yeah, yeah, that was not something any of us were truly comfortable with, but we powered through because we're professionals, and we're so professional, in fact, that I'm declaring by my rights and authority to have a abuse of power stream. I have the power to run a stream, and I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
You you are enjoying this way too much, aren't you?
I am. I am. In fact, I don't know how many streams I could have pulled on, but I mean, I could have abused power and also broadcast on your stream, but I figured that wouldn't be cool to do. So, yeah, so I
Wait,
saw two movies today.
wait, it's connected to my channel still.
Just a second. Boop, boop, boop. Let's see if I can actually sync this to your channel now. Now it's broadcasted to your channel. I've
Huh.
pirated your stream too. Surprise Ayrton content.
That's weird.
Yeah,
I'm really
yeah.
confused. Oh, probably because I linked them when we used to do the crossover when we cut from the gospel streams
Mm,
and do like
mm.
after party streams on my channel. That must be why it's connected like that.
That's exactly
Okay.
why. And now it's on. So there's like a cross stream to that and to my Twitter. So we got all sorts of
We're
streaming.
we're crossing too many streams. I think this is a little bit homosexual.
Nah, nah, nah. So what we're talking about is I went out to see two movies for the end of the year. It does not change my movie rankings any, thankfully enough. But I want to talk about them because the movies
Are you
we
going to
still
keep
don't talk
broadcasting this
about.
on my channel?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, you're gonna have content. I mean, how long has
That's
it been since you've made content for your own channel?
I don't want to talk about it.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm doing you a favor by giving you content. Uh, so I went out and saw Wonka, and I went and saw Iron Claw. Do you know what?
How was Wonka? I saw Jim tweeting about it.
I mean, I disagree with Jim's opinions, but I mean, it was fine. It
Okay.
was a very fine movie. But what I wanted to talk about with Wonka and Iron Claw, and unfortunately I can't talk about with Rune, because Rune is in a stream with other friends, which I was in. I'm still committed to the bit of in the stream.
Fern doesn't have friends.
I mean, he actually does. He's a very popular young lad.
I'm,
Um.
shush. I'm trying
Anyway,
to feel better about myself.
I mean, you have friends too. It's just you don't
No,
live near any of them anymore because you're living in a van down by the river. I mean, by the railroad track.
technically, I have. You're not wrong. You're technically correct. I have two friends back in Michigan still.
Mm, mm, mm. So, let me talk about both of these movies because they're both good movies, but they're both not great movies. And I'm going to talk about Wonka first. So, Wonka is set in a vaguely Victorian slash Edwardian sort of space. It's old, but they have cars. And not like old cars, but like
Wait,
cool
wait.
Art Deco looking cars.
Uh, okay.
And the racial politics of the time is it's all over the place. You know, there are black people where there shouldn't be black people for a period piece. There's white people everywhere because, of course, white people are everywhere. There's also a historically disproportionate number of black people and people of color. And there are people of color and people of genders and jobs that don't make sense for the period. It's again, it's all over the place.
So
because we need
typical
our main,
Hollywood. Got it.
because we need our main character to have a diverse friend group in his scheme to get himself out of trouble, right? And they all have to be on the stack. They're all on the stack, except for the white guy in the group who's not Willy Wonka. But he is actually not being treated as a secret bad guy because they need his skills as an accountant to prove that the bad guys are actually bad. It's kind of
Wait, Wonka's an accountant?
refreshing. No, no, he's not. Uh, Wonka is okay with progressive stack because he can't read.
Okay. Okay.
And
I'll,
I know what you're
I'll go
saying.
with it.
I know what you're saying. Well, Larry, why can't he read? I mean, that's what you're thinking, right?
Yeah, for the bit.
It's because he put all of his energy in learning how to become the best at making chocolate that he never learned how to read.
So, so he put all his stats in crafting instead of intelligence.
Exactly, exactly. But he's also intelligent. He put all of his stats in crafting, but he didn't put any in linguistics. But I mean, he
Okay.
also put it in linguistics because he could talk to animals. It doesn't make sense if you're putting into a video game statistical analogy. And
Okay.
now I know what you're asking, other than because the movie can happen, why did Wonka want to be the best at making chocolate?
Because it's
I
an
know you're
aphrodisiac and he wanted bitches.
no, 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 no. It's because his mom, when they were living on a houseboat, used to make chocolate for him, even though they were poor.
Wait,
And
wait. They didn't have houseboats in that time period.
well, I mean, they did for some reason.
It's just like the
And
fucking that shifter being on the wrong side of that fucking Jack Kirby panel
I
that you
mean, that was
posted the other day.
hey, you got to go back in time and complain to Jack Kirby about that.
So actually, I thought about that. Sorry, I'm going to be
Mm,
a little autistic about antique motorcycles for a second. My guess is he saw a police
mm,
Indian motorcycle
mm,
during that time frame, living in New York, because
mm.
that's what NYPD used was Indians, and Indians had shifters on the other side, whereas Harleys, which is the majority of World War II military motorcycles of that time period, had shifters on the left side. Is my
Yes, but I
guess?
mean, Captain America obviously was going to have an Indian because that was the most based motorcycle choice.
No, actually, Captain America has canonically always ridden Harley Davidsons.
I mean, that's a non-based decision. I can't support
And
that.
and during World War II, Harley made something like 80,000 WLAs
Yeah,
that
yeah,
were built for the war effort, which all had shifters on the left side. Indian
mm,
was a bit smarter at the time for like
yeah,
their police bikes and stuff, and had the shifter on the right, which meant your
yeah,
throttle was on the left, so you could still wield your gun while riding.
yeah.
But
But disregardless. So and the reason he wanted to learn to make chocolate is because his mom never taught him her secret of chocolate, and she promised him that if he shared his love of chocolate with the world, she would be there. So he thought he could literally make his mom reappear from being dead by becoming the best at making chocolate.
that's gay.
I mean, it's a children's story, Aaron. It's the logic of a children's story.
It doesn't make it any less gay.
So Willy Wonka is working as a cook on a boat, and then he arrives in what's not said to be London, but I mean, of course it's London. And he blows his entire last wages his first day in town and has to go live in a workhouse. Although he doesn't know it's a workhouse because he's extremely naive and optimistic. And so he gets enslaved in the workhouse. And he has
Okay.
a
Sorry, my autism is still going a bit. Recreational houseboating in the United States started in the late 1940s.
yeah, well, this is in the United States. They're in some sort of jungle.
That doesn't make it any better. Anyways,
Yeah. So anyway, um, in this magical workhouse, there are various people who've all been enslaved because they didn't read the fine print on the contract, which is set up the future thing on how Wonka does the business with Charlie and the grandpa. You remember that from the Gene Wilder
yeah,
movie?
yeah. You
Yeah.
lose. Good day, sir. I said good day.
So in this, we have a female autistic telephone operator who has been down there and doesn't talk until the plot needs her to talk.
Okay.
We have a fat, sassy black lady who's a plumber.
Uh,
We have a failed comedian, and we have a little black orphan waif who are all enslaved to do laundry.
what? Why is a plumber enslaved to do laundry? Plumbing is a way more of a valuable skill.
Well, because she didn't have any money to pay for her room.
But she could do plumbing work.
Well, she could, but she has to pay for her room first.
But she could do plumbing work. Plumbers make a lot of money.
Right. But to do that, she'd have to be able to get out of the workhouse.
But if she was a plumber, she could have had money before.
Right, but she didn't have money at the time, so she went to the workhouse.
My brain hurts.
Also, there was an accountant who got thrown in there. I know what you're saying, but accountants make money.
Oh, I was going to say good, but
The telephone operator, they didn't explain how she got thrown in there. And the orphan waif was abandoned. And so Wonka
it sounds
can't
like the setup
legally.
to a really, really bad racist joke.
Oh, we're going to get some bad racist jokes. Don't you worry. So when Wonka comes into town, he tries to sell his chocolate, but he doesn't know that there's an illegal cartel in operation in the city. And one of the people, hey church,
Are they in South America?
happy New Year. No, they're in London.
But then why is
Everybody
there
in
a
the chat,
cartel?
please press F for church, for respect for church who's dying of sickness. There's a cartel because all the chocolate boys said if we control all of the chocolate in this city, which is the most important city for chocolate, we'll make all the money.
But cartels are distinctly South American.
No, God no. Business
They're
cartels exist all over the world.
I felt like cartel, quote unquote, was like the term is distinctly South
No,
American.
it is not.
Oh.
It is most commonly used now, but is originally an Italian word.
God damn it, Larry! You posted F and it posted as both me and Church in the chat.
I know, it's great. It's great. So it was an Italian word that came from a French word.
It's not great. It looks like I'm schizophrenic or some shit.
I mean, Aaron, this really is an intervention. We didn't have time to tell you.
I need to stop schizo posting on Twitter. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So Wonka has, the Wonka kind of chocolate stuff, which they wouldn't let you sell. Like, would you eat a chocolate that makes you fly in the air until you fart, the anti-gravity stuff out your anus? Well, you know what? Governments don't want to let you eat that kind of stuff. Governments say that's not fun.
And that's the fucking problem. That's why the state That's why the state needs to be abolished. Because if I want to eat floating chocolate and fart my way back down to earth, that is my right.
Mm, mm. So,
Politicians should be more afraid to start their cars. They're not going to let us have flying fart chocolate.
so he comes up with a scheme to escape the workhouse by convincing the lady who runs the workhouse that her goon is actually secretly a Bavarian nobleman.
Hmm.
So that allows him to go out and illegally sell chocolates. But Wonka can't just illegally sell chocolates by himself. He doesn't know enough of how to do that. So he needs to get everybody in the workhouse out there helping him illegally sell chocolates. Now, this is a workhouse. So how in the heck are they, cleaning their laundry in the workhouse, which is, how she makes her money? I'm guessing she's having a lot of weird, crazy sex and not noticing that none of the work is getting done. But that sure is weird.
The one bitch is a plumber, so she could easily install some sort of washing apparatus.
Oh no, they already have apparatus.
Oh.
But the apparatus require, physical laborers to operate them. It's never explained in the movie, and you know what? It's a kids' movie.
I'm barely following this, and it's not because I'm only half paying attention.
Well, that's okay.
Okay.
So eventually, the gang gets enough money together to open up a chocolate shop. But the illegal cartel, having failed to have the police rough them up, they come up with a more cunning scheme.
Why is there a gang of people opening a
Well, it's because we can't have a capitalist opening up the shop, so we need all these intersectional people to be a cooperative group forming an operation.
I thought it's been to who knows how long since I've read it, but I thought in the book he's just like an eccentric genius who is some reason really really good at making candy,
right. and this is the prequel to that.
He discovers the Oompa Loompas and then opens his chocolate shop by coercing them into working for him.
Oh, we're gonna get into the Oompa Loompas. We're definitely gonna get into the Oompa Loompas. Don't you worry about that.
But how does this link to the actual Roald Dahl story?
It does in the final scene.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad they, at least in the final scene, they attached it to the proper IP. Thanks, guys.
I mean, all the names and labels and aesthetics are connected to it, but it doesn't connect sensibly to the story until the final scene. But we'll get to that. So, what the evil cartel does, because their attempts to have the police beat up Wonka have all failed. Meanwhile, the police officer who's bribed on chocolate becomes a giant fat ass. It's kind of funny watching him just get fatter and fatter in every scene.
So they give him the Thor treatment?
No, fatter than that.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so fat, I'm surprised they didn't use butter for one scene for him to get out of the car.
You know what's interesting? Sorry, just, since we're talking about a period piece, have you gone back recently and watched, like, Abbott and Costello or Three Stooges or Laurel and Hardy or anything like that in the past, 5 years?
In the past 5 years, yes.
So you realize, like, what they considered fat, quote unquote, back then is like just a dude walking around these days. It's wild.
It is. So they have the people who run the workhouse poisoning Wonka's chocolate with some of his more esoteric ingredients. This leads to a riot of uppity Londoners getting their hair changed colors, women having facial hair, people's skin changing colors. So they just burn the shop to the ground.
Cats living with dogs, babies having babies, all kinds of craziness.
Yeah. the bad guys, they bribe Wonka. Give up on your dreams, and we can make all of your friends' lives better. Especially the little orphan girl. There's a reason I said especially the little orphan girl, because it turns out um, one of the guys.
She gonna be a magical space Negro. I swear to God, if that's
No,
my
no,
story
no,
arc, I'm watching this movie
no,
tomorrow.
no. It's not the story arc.
Uh,
So
Damn it!
she is actually the partial heir of the Slugworth Chocolate Company, but she was hidden away in this workhouse because Mr. Slugworth wanted to seize the whole company for himself. Because his brother banged the librarian, got the librarian pregnant, and then died. And the librarian's like, "Please, sir, my baby's sick," and he's like, "I'll take
But
care of that."
for Wonka, but Slugworth was just a made up dude who worked for Wonka to just fuck with the kids.
Right, right. But you see, this was the real Slugworth, and then later Wonka's going to buy him out. But we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. And then Wonka and the little black girl, with some help, break into the secret cartel headquarters. It's a very sensible plot. It involves stealing a giraffe, having a
As one
giraffe
does.
get, as one does, getting a giraffe into a Catholic church, having the giraffe assault a Catholic priest, then forcing the church to call a fake phone number to get the zoo animal team to bring the giraffe out and put it back in the zoo, and then use all the shenanigans to break into the secret cartel headquarters and get access to their criminal ledger that has all of their dirty deeds recorded in it,
See,
including bribing the
that just
chief
sounds
of
like
police.
that just sounds like a typical Thursday night for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And Wonka, the little girl, get in. They confront the bad guys. The bad guys take back their ledger. It's like steal the last of Wonka's chocolates, and they throw him in the chocolate bin to get drowned in lots and lots of liquid chocolate. Liquid chocolate that's also not hot, which doesn't work.
what?
But we're yeah.
And Jim liked this movie. I used to think Jim
Um,
was cool.
I mean, there's a reason Jim likes this movie. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to all that. And they were gonna drown in that chocolate pool, except for the fact the chocolates the bad guys ate belonged to the Oompa Loompa. And the Oompa Loompa swore Oompa Loompa vengeance on them, that they had to pay him back 1,000-fold. And then he, drained the chocolate out, and Willie and the little girl got saved. And the chief of police got exposed for being a fat ass, eating thousands upon thousands of pounds of chocolate. The bad guys almost floated away. There was a giant chocolate fountain in the middle of the city, and they were giving out free chocolate to everybody, and everybody was being united by a love of chocolate. And then Willy Wonka saw his mom, and then he and his
I thought she
friends
was
got the
dead.
right, but like it's a ghost. He had a vision of his mom's
Oh,
ghost
so he put
because
psilocybin in the chocolate. That's the secret ingredient.
I mean, clearly yes, but no. Because you see, his mom's secret ingredient is the chocolate doesn't matter. It's all about the people you share it with.
Oh, Jesus fuck.
So the little black girl goes to with her mom, and he pays off his debt to the Oompa Loompas, because you have to pay your debts to the Oompa Loompas or they'll just steal it from you. That's that is a plot point in this movie. And then Wonka's like,
Okay, I see why Jim likes it.
exactly. And then he goes to the Oompa Loompas, like saying, "Hey, bro, what we're gonna do is we're gonna buy an abandoned castle and turn it into a chocolate factory, and you're gonna be my head chocolate taster." And you see the Oompa Loompas actually have a hard time growing the cocoa beans. They're kind of shit at it. So what he's going to be doing is like, hey, little Oompa Loompas, instead of being, where he buys them and like ships them like they're animals, he's going to say, hey, listen, we're going to take you someplace where we can grow cocoa beans, which shouldn't be England, but it's going to be England for some reason. And in exchange for that, you're going to work in my factory and do your delightful little Oompa Loompa dance. Now, they also had an Easter egg for Roald Dahl. If you're a fan of his, Willy Wonka and the Little Black Girl released all of the flamingos all over the city. So essentially, London just is full of flamingos now. And the songs
Hell
were pretty
yeah.
good. Timothy Chalamet is very good at dancing around and doing musical theater performances. Also, Roland Atkinson, aka Mr. Bean, was one of the henchmen for the bad guys, who was a Catholic priest who was being blackmailed by his
Oh,
addiction to
really?
chocolate. Yeah. And there were also an order of monks who were all being blackmailed by their addiction to chocolate.
All right.
So the movie it kind of gets flabby. And this is the guy who made Paddington 1 and 2, both really great movies. So if you're out there watching this on one of the streams this is on, you should go see Paddington 1 and or 2. Both excellent movies. And this is a good movie.
Isn't
It's
that
not an
about like
excellent movie.
Isn't that like about like a stuffed bear or some shit?
No, in the Paddington movies, he's an actual bear. It's about a bear who goes to live
No,
with an English family, and he learns about things,
that
has
poor bear.
adventures, and no, he's a bear from Peru too. He's a Peruvian bear.
What? What?
Yeah,
There's
he's a
not bear.
Peruvian bear.
There's not bears in Peru.
There are.
No, there's not.
Yeah, there's bears pretty much everywhere. Bears have a very good evolutionary template.
They're not. I'm looking that up. They're not bears in Peru.
So there
Holy
is
fuck!
the
There is a South American bear. It's called the spectacled bear, also known as a South American bear, Andean short-faced bear, or mountain bear.
mm,
God, that thing is
mm.
ugly as fuck. It looks like it has Down syndrome.
So there were lots of thematic things that were interesting in this movie, beyond the fact that the intersectional spectrum was represented, but it wasn't really in your face intersectionality. They had a black guy who was the leading villain. So it's an improvement. They're now letting us have black people be villains again. And they had a white guy who wasn't some form of disabled, who was a good guy, who is unambiguously good. So we've made progress in our progressive movies. But this movie was also deeply mired in trauma. And chocolate and trauma do go together because it's mostly farmed by little black kids who are being enslaved by warlords.
Speaking of trauma, these bears look like they were married to Chris Brown.
So for anybody watching this stream right now, and you're thinking, man, did I miss out on any movies that were good or entertaining?
No.
I mean, you did. And Wonka was good and entertaining, but it kind of goes too far in places. Like, having the main character have to learn to read. And he later learns to read well enough that he can read a criminal dossier in a ledger. So that's the feel-good part of the story, I guess. So Iron Claw. So how much do you know about wrestling, Aaron?
Not much.
Okay. So this is set in a very interesting time period in wrestling, with one of the more interesting and compelling groups of personalities in wrestling. But unfortunately, they have to kind of pare down the story to focus just on the family dynamics. And I understand why they did that, but because they did that, they kind of missed out on a lot of. No, that's not quite what that would be. No. So they kind of pared it down, so they missed out on a lot of the cool components of the story, and there's a lot of interesting subtext. So the Von Erich family is a family of professional wrestlers. Guy, was pretty successful. He didn't make it to the top per se, although you could argue he made it to the top in the Minnesota territory. But the Minnesota territory wasn't considered a full-fledged national territory, even though it was always considered one of the 3 premier belts in the United States, with the NWA title always being the premier belt until the 80s when Vince McMahon, put an end to the territorial system.
ANW, man, that makes me want a burger and some root beer.
It's the AWA, the American Wrestling Association, which is where Hulk Hogan first got big. A little guy you might have heard of called Jesse the Body Ventura got big. Another guy who got big, Mean Gene Okerlund.
So did I ever tell you about my childhood ice cream man?
You did not.
So I swear to God, this is 100% true. He looked identical to Hulk Hogan.
Right
to the point that he had a picture of him and Hulk Hogan next to each other on the outside of his ice cream truck.
That's pretty amazing.
And he was actually really cool because obviously me and my friends in that neighborhood at the time were little terrorists, and we would just try and annoy him, because if you annoyed him enough, he would take a handful of candy and just chuck it at you to get you to go away.
No, I feel you.
Yeah. So we would ride our bikes around and just be little shitheads, and yeah, it'd be like a handful of like Tootsie Rolls and Dum Dum Pops, and he'd just chuck it at our heads and into the grass. So we would go pick up the candy, and he could drive away with it. So we would leave him alone.
So first of all, the Von Erich family, just so I can explain this a little bit to you. The dad, Fritz Von Erich, and he changed his name to Von Erich as like a stage performer name. He was fairly successful. He was actually trained by Bret Hart's dad, which is one of the things that got cut out of the story that could have been very interesting. But again, they wanted to focus on the family tragedy. So he had a bunch of kids. One of them died as a little kid during his wrestling career, and he was both drowned and electrocuted at like 6 or 7.
All right.
And people used to joke, "Hey, is your family cursed or something?" Because like his grandmother's family, who he took the name from, was apparently, reported to have had bad luck in Germany, as you do. So he had 4 sons.
That's a common trait when you go to Germany.
Yeah, one of whom was supposed to become the NWA World Champion died in
or when
Japan.
Germany goes to you.
Yeah. So one of the sons who was supposed to be NWA World Champion died in Japan from a ruptured intestine. Although yeah.
Are you sure it wasn't Thailand?
No. And
he was hanging out with Nick Rekieta.
No, this is well before Nick Rekieta was a twinkle in his daddy's eye. Although
a twink in his daddy's eye.
Oof. Although Nick Rekieta's dad might have watched the Von Erichs in the old days with wrestling. So there was a contest between the 2 leading brothers who were wrestling. Of the 4 brothers, there's also a 5th brother who wasn't actually brought up in the movie for some reason. Probably, again, to keep things simple. Of the 2 brothers who were both serious about wrestling, Dad made it a coin flip in the movie about who was going to get picked. It didn't actually work out like that in real life because they cut down all the complex politics.
Wait, who was going to get pegged? Are you sure this isn't?
Who was going to get picked? I said.
Are you sure this isn't referring to Rekieta?
No, I said picked.
Oh, it sounded like pegged.
You're having a little headset trouble. So he flipped a coin.
Yeah,
There's actually
that must be
complicated
it.
politics of how the champion was selected in the NWA back then. So one son got the belt. He was the champion for a little while. Then got drunk on his Harley Davidson motorcycle and got in an accident and lost his foot,
As one does.
as one does. So part of the movie is his story to getting back to being a successful professional wrestler who's missing a foot.
This sounds tedious.
Well, they don't actually focus that much on it because Zac Efron's character is your viewpoint character, and he's the brother who lived because everybody else dies except for the brother who
This
didn't
whole
actually get
premise
written
still
into the story.
this
Well,
whole
no, this
premise
is
still sounds tedious. But
this is
maybe that's
based
because
on a
I'm
true
just not
story.
familiar. Maybe it's because I'm not familiar with
Yeah. So
wrestling
I'm
stuff.
filling you in with the gist of the wrestling part. And so his
Okay, there
younger
were a
brother
lot of
gets in.
acronyms.
Yeah. So his younger brother gets into wrestling, and he gets a shoulder issue, and he goes in for shoulder surgery. But there's a complication. He gets a 107-degree fever for like 2 hours, and he's left a little well. I'm just
A
gonna have
little
Alex.
retarded.
I'm just gonna have Alex Jones explain it. And damn it, you stepped on it before he was able to get to the button.
You gotta
So
be
I'm just
quicker than that, buddy.
Kind of retarded.
And so he decides to kill himself. He decides to kill himself because of his being brain damaged.
Ryan Reynolds himself.
Canadian healthcare. He was getting some Canadian healthcare.
Yeah.
And then the brother with the 1 foot, he also decided to get some Canadian healthcare because he wasn't able to be as successful as he wanted to be. But
Church says an iron claw is when you mix tequila with a white claw.
Yeah. And so the brother, who is played by Zac Efron before the one brother killed himself, he got to have his shot at the world title with Ric Flair. And in the movie, he does what is called in professional wrestling. He goes into business for himself. But Ric Flair respects him for it. And that enables him to regain his sense of courage and self-respect and, be a good dad to his kids in the movie.
So where do the hookers and blow come into play?
Well, I mean, Ric Flair was there, so there was hookers and blow. It just wasn't happening.
Exactly. No.
Well, actually, no. I take that back. There was cocaine use in the movie, so there was some cocaine,
but no hookers.
But there were more pill abuse.
This is not historically accurate.
So anyway, and then the son who survived sold the family business because this was at the end of the era for territorial wrestling. He was one of the last territory guys to sell out. And then, the territories fade into what we call indie wrestling nowadays. And now he's got kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews who are in the business. So the story focuses on him, just experiencing all the trauma and nonsense in his family and how it makes him, separate from his wife because he's literally afraid the curse is going to murder his child. And, I get why that's the thing, but let me talk about the stuff that the movie didn't talk about. So, first, the son who's the protagonist of this movie, he fights against Harley Race. And Harley Race was one of the last old school champions. Now, you'll think Ric Flair's an old school guy. No, Rick was one of the first of the new school guys. And now, there's the baby school. But, the old school guys, Harley Race would show up in a town, go to a bar, get into bar fights to promote, him being a tough badass for a wrestling show. That's the way they did things back then. If you said that, wrestling was fake to Harley Race, he would just beat the crap out of him.
Did he go to Waffle Houses?
No, that was Macho Man. But Macho Man was, again, also part of the newer school. And we don't really get to experience the fact that Harley Race physically assaulting the main character and causing him to lose his step and not be able to become the new champion was part of the Byzantine politics of the NWA. So, in Vince McMahon's WWE, he was the sole decider of who was and wasn't the champion. The NWA, in this is part of why the NWA collapsed and then came back and then collapsed again and then came back, but it's being run by Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. And then Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins is slowly causing it to go into the toilet again. Ironically, because somebody snorted cocaine on a broadcast. Because that's a standard.
Hookers and blow.
Yeah. So because of that, there's all sorts of politics. All of the different owners of territories in the NWA had a committee which decided who was the champion. So one of the Von Erich boys was decided to be champion. You know who was in charge of that committee at the time? Their dad. Their dad had finagled his way to becoming No. Their dad. So their dad had finagled to being part of that committee. So that's something that adds drama and pathos to the story. And their dad always tried to become the NWA champion. You know who was running the committee back then? Their dad's boss. The guy who got their dad started in wrestling. No, not Bill Clinton. And he was the one who always kept the Von Erich boys from getting their big break. And the Von Erichs in the World Class Wrestling, while they were part of the NWA, they were always one of the bigger parts, and they were always a rival with Crockett, which is a promotion on the Carolinas, and Ole Anderson in Georgia. And Ole Anderson in Georgia's territory later gets taken over by Crockett, and that later gets taken over by Ted Turner, and becoming what you know of as World Championship Wrestling.
Huh. Hey, Crockett. Yeah. My great grandmother was a Crockett.
So there's all this. Yeah, there's all this politics involved, and they allude to the politics, but they don't really tell you why the politics is there and how the politics impacts the story. And the World Championship, the World Class Wrestling outfit in Texas was one of the more popular NWA territories. They were broadcast globally, and the Von Erich boys were
every time you say NWA, for some reason I think of women's basketball, and I have no idea why.
You're thinking WNBA.
Yeah, but that's all I can think of. I'm just thinking of Brittany Griner with her man voice sucking at basketball. That's all I can picture.
Oh, by the way, when I was talking about the cops in the Wonka movie, I do have a clip of two of the guys playing the cops.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, this Saturday night, there's not even going to be a fight.
I will torture his body so that his soul learns to be humble.
I'm going to knock him out round one, bitch.
God chose me for this fight. God is the teacher. Derek is the student.
Wait. What?
Yeah, those guys played the two cops who were the two central police people in the whole thing. Yeah. So it was fun.
So wait. Those two half black guys played cops in Victorian London.
Yes. Well, let me get back to the Iron Claw story a little bit. So, also, the guy who was keeping the Von Erichs from getting the NWA title was also a rival to Harley Race. And so, he and Harley would have had to cut a side deal to fuck the Von Erichs. And Ric Flair lost to one of the Von Erich boys, but that's only because the one who died from the ruptured intestine was such a big tragedy in wrestling. Everybody who was involved in the NWA committee knew that was a huge way to make money, was to just give it to the Von Erichs and just milk the grief from wrestling fans for cash.
All right.
And then the guy they were using for that got drunk on a motorcycle and lost his foot and screwed everybody out of money. So when Ric Flair came back to Texas Stadium, that was actually a huge deal.
Wait. Did I zone out for a second, or did you just say he lost his motorcycle and a foot?
No, he lost his foot in a motorcycle accident. He might have been having a stroke.
I know what. Okay. I wish I was having a stroke.
And so the movie ends with the brother, getting his Canadian health care, and Zac Efron trying to choke his
Uh,
dad to death. And then, they no longer are close together. There's the permanent rupture in the family. So he starts things over with his kids and, his brother's kids and, leading the example and being the dad he wished he had. So the whole movie is all about the trauma of, how the legacy and expectations of our parents sometimes gets forced onto us. And sometimes just being part of an obedient traditionalist Christian family means we'll hurt ourselves trying to do what other people love. Like the brother who had the brain damage, he wanted to be a musician. And he was much more interested in like the television productions aspects of the wrestling business. But he got into wrestling because his brother died, and they needed somebody else to be in the family business to be marketable. So there's a lot of depth that could have been mined for an even better movie, but I think the producers and the director made the decision that we don't want to complicate things too much for people who don't know the ins and outs of wrestling. And also,
yeah, that's
the, the WWF was briefly involved, but they didn't actually bring in the feature that the WWF was the devil to the people in the NWA, because the McMahons were the first people to really be successful at breaking away. And something interesting is, do you know how the McMahons initially became super successful as a professional wrestling promotion?
wasn't that like selling sweepstakes like door to door through the mail and shit?
No. Like their first really big successful marketing branding is like saying, we got a lot of swarthy Italians. Let's make one of them the world champion. Hey, there's a lot of Brazilians and Argentinians who've started to move into the area. Let's make one of them the champion. Hey, we got a lot of swarthy Puerto Ricans. Let's make one of them the champion. And then milking those ethnic networks for, fans and pumping up attendances and stuff like that. And also the ethnic newspapers
Now,
and
was that the
radio
only way?
stations.
What? Now, was that the only way they were milking the ethnic regions of this industry?
Well, they were doing that in the Northeast, where there were lots of ethnics.
Okay, so they were milking a lot of ethnics in the Northeast. Got it. Rune
Yes.
should really be here to speak for himself.
Yeah, no, but I mean, he's the wrong kind of ethnic.
I meant the milking part.
Well, I mean, also in Wonka, there was milking of a giraffe.
Neither of these movies sound good. Why did I come here to talk to you about these?
Because you would otherwise be drinking alone, which is a sign of alcoholism.
It is not a sign of alcoholism. I do not
It
have a
is.
drinking problem. I am quite good at it.
I mean, again, this is secretly an intervention, so just saying.
Then why isn't Church here? Shouldn't we give him an intervention?
Well, I mean, he's dying of some sort of infection.
That's true. He has the herpes AIDS.
Now, you see, the reason I wanted to do this is I especially after the show last time with Commander Classified, I had a thought of how we could really sort of contextualize how race is being used in this thing, and we could kind of put to bed things like this.
Total Bligger death. Kill Navi, behead Navi, roundhouse kick a blue monkey into the concrete, slam dunk a Bligger baby into...
We could really contextualize how race is being used in pop culture, how we talk about race, and we could talk
Put
about
the banner up. Put the banner up.
And how we could really talk about racism in a deeper way, in a more meaningful way. And also, I need to put up this other banner. Because these movies are really weird with race, because, like, in Iron Claw, There's almost no black people whatsoever.
I keep forgetting that I made that ticker at the bottom a while ago. Anyways,
Yes, yeah. But it's the thing like in Iron Claw. There's like almost no black people. There's like one black guy you see in one match, and I think another black guy you see in another match. It's almost entirely white people, but it's like Texas in the 70s and 80s. So that's kind of normal. And in the other movie, like it's like, okay, we're gonna just put a mix of people of different races all over the place. That doesn't make sense. And when you actually think about it, it narratively makes things uncomfortable. Like you have an aristocratic chocolate guy who's black in England in the 19th century. That doesn't make sense.
taking advantage of a black orphan
Who's his own niece,
well
and then giving her to white people for money.
so I I I think the wrestling movie that's going to appeal to what 17 people in our age range
No.
that are white dudes,
No.
and that's about it.
No.
Hold on, let me finish.
No. It's actually okay. All right.
Let me finish my point. Whereas Wonka is like a whole cultural thing. That's the more people are going to be drawn in by the branding of Wonka than they are professional wrestling. So if you want to get across, quote unquote, the message, you're going to put it in a movie that has a wider appeal to try and get to more people than you would to something that has a more narrow appeal. That's my theory.
The message is actually secretly in both movies. The wrestling movie actually has the message deeper in it.
How deep? Is it like super deep? Is it like breathing deep?
It's balls deep.
You should put up the biggest, blackest dick ticker right now.
No, I'm not going to do that. and you know why I'm not going to do that?
First, ethnically accurate Jesus goes right here next to Father Mary and Mother Josephine, followed closely by the three genderless wise people on their bird scooters, Tig Notaro for some reason, and of course the little drummer them, because God forbid we call a boy a boy.
Anyway, so the message, quote unquote, in Wonka is actually very surface level, like a chocolate coated shell, if you will. And when you break the chocolate shell, you get to, a standard sort of message of like, believing in yourself, don't let your dreams be dreams, fight for the people you love, all that sort of stuff. And like the message and stuff, it's cosmetic. Now, when we look at Iron Claw, it's all about trauma, right? How dad's trauma got passed on to the kids and then metastasized into a curse that murdered them dead. Like the dad, he just wanted his sons to keep the family business going, even though he was secretly stealing money from them because he was hot at the tail end of wrestling's golden age, and he was skimming money off them because he had to pay to keep 4 professional wrestlers fed and trained. That took a lot, and dad felt he was entitled to that money.
Yeah,
and
the more you break it down and talk about it, the more just tedious and gay both of these movies sound.
But again, this movie is ultimately about family and how family is powerful and how if you corrupt family,
oh god damn
really
it,
destructive.
Shut up, Dom.
Yeah.
No,
both these are
we are not fast. We are not fast and furiousing these movie reviews.
Again, it's all about
yourself,
family.
Larry.
Anyway, so yeah, and the move Iron Claw ends with a picture of the whole family that's there now today, and it also shows us like how things were in the 80s, how like you could go into a date with a chick in a Texas barbecue joint, and she'd just like sit next to you and hug you, and you'd make out in the joint, and like nobody would care. I mean, because it's a hot redhead chick with big titties.
I mean, you can do that now if you're.
And there's lots of drugs. There's lots of drugs and cocaine. And why am I reverbing through your Aaron? Did YouTube break? Test. Okay, that's better. So like there was drugs. There was. Okay, Aaron, let me know if you could figure out why your mic's being stupid in the private chat, and then we'll loop you back in. So for the people, I do recommend both these movies. They're good, but they're not great. Zac Efron does a good part being the guy who's putting whole family business on his shoulders and his brothers on his shoulders. And there is a weird scene where
does he do a song and dance?
No, that's Wonka. Wonka's the musical. And also, it talks about how his brothers who all killed themselves and died of horrible conditions were actually better than he was. But he was the most well-rounded one. But again, the thing is that movie, which is clearly made to be an Oscar sort of movie, is probably not going to be able to get an Oscar because it only had one black person in it, maybe two.
Oh, that is not enough for an Oscar.
Well, no. Like, they have a rule that you have to have a percentage of people of different minorities in your thing. And there's a lot of good actors in this movie.
You need to pay at least like 4 black people, 1 non-binary, and 3 lesbians to get an Oscar these days. I'm pretty sure that's the fee.
No. It's like there has to be like in the back. They actually have to have parts and stuff. Whereas Wonka, which is the story is very much what it needs to be for a kid's story, even though it's not really as good as the Paddington movies, and very few movies are. The Paddington movies are legitimately great. But it's got all sorts of diverse people.
I still don't believe those South American.
You don't believe the bears in South America, do you?
I still don't think those South Americans look like they're just Down syndrome black bear. No. They look like polar bears with Down syndrome that are married to Chris Brown. That's what they look like. If you don't believe me, look up a picture of them.
So you see, what I was actually wanting to do was take the racial politics and dialogue and stuff and talk to Rune about Commander Classified's alcoholic rant last night, because I had some thoughts and feelings about it, and I wanted to air those grievances out with Rune, but I guess we're not going to do that for 2023. We might air those grievances out in 2024. And I'm not saying that there can't be spiciness.
Well, I mean, he is crippled, so it might take him a few minutes to walk over here.
No. I mean, like he's having a chat with other friends. That's fine. But you see, I also was having a chat with those friends, but I came here to talk about stuff for the show. Even though we did show yesterday, and I mean, he's under no obligation.
You tricked me into that.
I mean, I didn't expect you to come. I figured you'd be drunk in a ditch somewhere. And I mean, if you ask Church,
me and Church are hanging out.
Right now, but if you ask Church, hey Church, where do you think Ayrton's going to be on New Year's Eve? He'd say probably drunk in a ditch somewhere.
No, I'm in a parking lot. I'm not in a ditch, and I'm not really drunk. I've had a bit of wine. I'm chilling out. I got my dog sitting on my lap. It's cold as balls.
Well, Ayrton, we've talked about these 2 movies, which don't change my final movie review things, and I'm going to be releasing sometime tomorrow, probably, my official 2023 movie watch list, and Jim and I are going to do a little bit of a nostalgia for our old stream that we used to do, and Jim and I are going to talk about all the movies of 2023. And we'll try to bring some other people in to diversify things and be entertaining.
I may be able to. I know I had to, because of tech issues, I had to leave a bit of an odd time yesterday, and yesterday's show was a bit weird. But if you think there's enough there that I could go through and actually like grab out clips of your top movie stuff to put together like a 10-minute video and upload it to the channel, I might be able to do that.
Well, I'll have to figure that out, because my biggest problem with streaming is I could be really good at streaming like this, but like I hate listening to myself. I deeply hate my voice.
I'm in the same boat. I also deeply hate your voice, but
oof.
no, but seriously, just if you think that there's enough context for me to like clip together like a decent video, I might be able to do that tomorrow.
I mean, for my old channel with Jim, we did like years of stuff, and I couldn't even begin to start giving you suggestions for cut things.
No, like yesterday's stream. If I can go through and clip out enough stuff from yesterday's stream for like a video, Larry's top movies of 2023, and made an independent video.
Like my top 5 and my bottom 5, and we just need to make sure we cut out all the slurs from Commander Classify.
All I would do was just cut out like each movie individually and what you said about each movie, and clip them together with like transitions between each one and maybe some graphics.
I mean, that's good for the channel, but for the watch list, it's going to be like more movies, and I'm also going to have a mixture of good movies and trash for Jim.
I mean, he deserves it after he thinks that this Wonka movie was good.
I mean, it was good. It wasn't great. Again, like the Paddington movies are legitimately great, and the Paddington movies also featured a lot of the same actors.
Again, isn't Paddington just a bear with like a rain hat?
Yes, and he was going on delightful adventures as he was trying to, find the guy who discovered his family in South America. And it turned out in the first movie that he was dead, and his daughter was a psycho and wanted to kill Paddington because there was no animal in the Natural History Museum that her dad discovered, because he didn't want to kill the bears because he thought they were cool. And in the second movie, Hugh Grant is trying to steal stuff, and he's using like a pop-up book, which is actually a secret treasure map to get a secret treasure. And Paddington goes into jail, and he has to convert the jail into his friends. And then they break out, and then they later realize that abandoning Paddington was the wrong thing to do, and then they help him defeat Hugh Grant, who's actually a mastermind criminal, who becomes super gay in prison when he gets sent to prison.
Okay, so legit question. Paddington, that's a British thing, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's why it sounds super gay and retarded. Got it. That makes sense.
But it's actually very wholesome. And Paddington 2 is both the Paddington movies have 90-something critics review scores and 90-something audience review scores. It's legit.
Sounds like fake news. I don't know. It sounds like it sounds like some sort of British psyop.
See, now I need to get you and Rune and I together to watch Paddington. We need to figure out a way to make this happen. And Rune's already going to be in because Paddington makes it furry.
That's true. That's a good point. And I love talking shit about the British, so...
And anyway, so for those of you out there watching in the audience, thank you for being here. And you now have plenty of time to get ready for midnight if you're staying up till midnight. Please make sure you're somewhere safe and not with alcoholics who are driving and causing accidents. If you got pets, make sure they're okay with all the explosions that are going to be happening. And good night, everybody.
Who's exploding? Who's exploding?
The fireworks.
Oh,
People's pets
yeah.
don't like firework explosions.
Yeah, my dog doesn't give a shit. She just looks out the window and it's like, what's that? Oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, so it's because your dog had to listen to Detroit.
Yeah. By the way, if you hear distinctive like reverb and echo, those are gunshots, not fireworks. Fireworks go up too high to reverberate off of buildings if you live in a city. There's a
That's an
pro
important thing
tip
to know.
pro tip from my Detroit and South Chicago days.
Anyway, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.